Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Slim Bits. Today I will be talking about episode 14, Wieners and Losers. Okay, so the whole central premise of this episode is really stupid, and it kind of plays towards an inside joke that I had with my college friends, and I don't even remember how it started, but our euphemism for marijuana was hot dogs. As in like, oh, pass that hot dog, or want to go to the alleyway and smoke some hot dog, stupid things like that. I don't know exactly who started it. I think that was just our method of being clever, because back when I was in college, weed was not legalized in Canada, so that was our sort of clever way to work around it. And I guess in order to pay tribute to that, and to my wonderful time with my friends in college. I just decided to make an entire episode where the mayor decriminalizes marijuana but outlaws hot dogs. So that is the little backstory to that stupid idea. Right off the bat here, you probably wouldn't know it unless I were to tell you, which I'm doing right now. Or this episode marks the very first time that Dee, the woman who voices the police captain here, was in the same room with me when we recorded her lines. Typically, because she lives several towns over from me, or our schedules just didn't really permit, she would record from her place, and I would just get the lines and ask her to do some touch-ups here and there. This is the first time in all the years that she had been kind enough to lend her time and her talent to some of my cartoons, that she was in the same room with me. So I really got to give her some acting coaching advice, which she never really needed, because she always was very good. But it was just fun to work with her finally in that capacity, and I think it shows, because this episode is one of my absolute favorite Kilroy and the police captain interactions. That whole Smashables thing, I can't really take credit for that whole idea where she just spends the entire sequence there throwing her stuff around like a stereotypical action movie police captain character. I picked that up from some improv troupe that I saw on Gravel Island, and I don't know if that's something they do regularly or if that was just a spur of the moment thing from the actor, but I always stuck to it, and I just want to say thanks, Gravel Island Theater Sports, for that awesome idea that I incorporated into this cartoon. My mother does not sound like that. My mother's a very sweet woman. But that kind of raised an interesting creative problem for me. Did I want to include my parents, Kilroy's parents, in this series? And given that this is a fictionalized version of myself, does that give me carte blanche to create some new parents for me, or what kind of parents would my character have? And I never really got around to it. I think if I ever were to expand on that even further, I would break it down where my character comes from a very blue collar working class kind of family, where I have 4 brothers all around the same age, and we're always fighting, and we would do anything for each other, but we're also always at each other's throats, and we'd have very overbearing, loud parents kind of thing. Very, very Costanza kind of environment. And I guess Kilroy would, I imagine his parents would be sort of the opposite end of the spectrum. They'd be very wholesome and very supportive and doting, to the point where Kilroy would be very embarrassed about it. I just think those are very good caricatures or parent archetypes, comedy parent archetypes that I could have had fun playing around with, but I never really came around to it. I love that stupid disguise on my part. Yeah, this is a very my character heavy episode here in the later parts. I don't know what a typical Kilroy episode would be necessarily like. Probably that stakeout episode for episode 2. But I kind of like, getting my character separated from Kilroy and seeing how that kind of expands, and what kind of jokes I can mine from that premise. All right, so these guys here, the hoodlums. I wanted to have a sequence where Kilroy just goes to town on an army of identical-looking bad guys. And I didn't want to do generic soldiers. I wanted to have a street gang kind of threat for him to go after, with all these interchangeable generic bad guys. And I just think that, I weighed like whether it was going to be like a biker gang or if it was going to be like traditional mobsters with like the trilby hats and the suits and the Tommy guns and whatever. And I just figured like, yeah, like if all the guys are wearing hoods, you can disguise their faces. They can be interchangeable. They can be indistinguishable from each other, and that way I can repeat them and have Kilroy just like swarm them in that very fun to animate shootout sequence, which I believe I copied from like an earlier cartoon of mine from Newgrounds, which has since been removed and demonetized and whatever. But I always kept that animation sequence, and I always thought it was very cool and fun to. It was nice that I could bring it back, and now it lives on in a proper Kilroy episode. Yeah, so that's all I have to really say about episode 14. This is a very sort of filler episode, all things considered, given that, episode 13 was all about the new story arc of superhero and everything. This is just like sort of a more back to basics Kilroy episode. But yeah, that's all I really got to say on that, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more Slim Bits. Bye!
That jackass man. I can't say it. Can we restart?
We sure can.
Delete that.
No.
Oh.